Hi, a few months ago I posted a short video where I demoed one of my games. I said that if I got more than 1000 views I would create a new video where I explain to you line by line how I created that game. It's a very simple game, but it teaches you some of the basics of Solar2D or Corona SDK as it was called previously. And here it is. The first thing you need to do is to install Solar2D on your computer. So when the installation is finished, you're ready to create a new project. To do that, you just click New Project, and then I'm going to call mine ColorUp. I leave this to blank, upright, and font preset 320 width, and height is 480, and then next. And then I just select the location. I just created a new folder called ColorUp, and click Open. And then I have it here in Visual Studio Code. I like to use VS Code because it's free and it's a very good editor. You can use Sublime or whatever you want, but this is my favorite. Before I start coding, I just want to include some libraries and assets. So in the root folder here, I paste a few folders and files. I have a transition to library and folder, and also an assets folder where I have some fonts, images, and sounds. I will leave a link in the description to where you can download this very easy. I have a zip file you can get where all of this is included. And there's also a file or a folder called libs with some GG data for saving data and a real layout to make it easier to calculate the center of the screen and similar. But now it's time to get started. Configuration is a little bit daunting, but it's just a few lines in our case. So let's go back to the editor and find config.lua. Here I want to calculate the aspect ratio for the game. So local to define a variable, aspect ratio equal display dot pixel height divided with display dot pixel width. And then I want to assign one variable local width to 360 because this is the size that I have been used to working with. And then to get the correct height based on the aspect ratio and this width, we say local height equals width and multiply it with aspect ratio. And then I want to replace 320 down here with width, which is this variable, and height. And I can also remove this command line, and this. This way we can have retina images. So then I can save this. And that was actually all we need to do for the configuration here. But we also want to hide the status bar, but that's not technically a configuration. But if you open up main.lua, which is the first file that the game will execute, we say display.set status bar display.hidden status bar. So if I save this and go back to the Corona simulator, it will just be black, but that's because this isn't working on the simulator because we don't have any status bar here anyway. And I can also say native.set property preferred screen edges differing system gestures, because on some iPhones, I'm not sure if this is on Android too, it's sometimes a problem when you click on this outside of the screen or on the near the edges. So this will just remove that functionality while you are playing the game. So if I save now, nothing happens still, because as you can see here, this is not working in the simulator. Great, so everything seems to be okay. So it's time to create a new folder here where all of our scenes will be placed. So create a new folder, scenes. A scene is a collection of objects like pictures and buttons and similar. We can begin with the menu so we have something to see. So inside this folder I create a new file called menu.lua, And first I want to import composer and relayout. Relayout is one of the libs I included in the beginning of this video, and composer is built in to Solar2D, so you can go back and forward in scenes and similar. So first I add a comment here just to say that I'm importing things here. Then I create a new variable, local composer, where I require or include composer, and the same with relayout. Next we can define some variables. Set variables. So first I just say that this is variables connected to the layout with a width, a height, center of the screen in x-axis and center of the screen in y-axis, and then we get them from the real layout we included up here. And then below here I want to create a new scene for the menu. Create a new comment just so I know that that's what it is. Local scene equals composer.new scene. So this is just an empty scene for now. And I want the groups local underscore grp main. This can just be an empty variable for now, but I will change it into a display group soon. And a display group, is a collection of sprites, texts and similar. And then I want to load a clicking sounds local underscore click, which is the name of the sound, audio.load stream assets sounds click.wav. So this is the sound that I want to play whenever I click a button. This was also a part of the files you was supposed to download. And below the set variables, I just want to define a comment here, local functions. I'm not going to create any one of those yet, but I just wanted to add the comment. And then below there, scene events functions. So this is functions connected to the scene, like loading, creating, destroying and similar. So first I create the create function scene create event. So when the scene is created, this function is launched. Here I want to say print scene create and then the name of the scene, so I can see in the console that everything is working. And when that is done, I want to convert this group into a display group. So grp main equals display.newGroup. And groups are very useful when you want to have different layers, so you can have a foreground, a background, and maybe a character in between those. And when that's done, I need to insert this view to the scene. To do that, as a self.view insert grp main, and then as an end to close this function. And then I also want a show function scene show event, and this will be called when the scene is finished and we're ready to show the content. And in here we need to check if the face of this event is will or did. So we say if event.face equals will, then I just say I'll save now because I don't want to do anything in here yet. But this will run before we show the scene. Event.face equals did, and that's when the scene has been shown. Then end, so just close it and close the function as well. And then I can copy this because we need a function for hide, and we can just have the same contents in here. And for destroy, destroy like that. So these are all the different functions we need for the scene right now. But we also need to tell the scene to use these functions as well, so we need to add some event listeners. Scene event listeners. Scene add event listener. Create scene like that, and then I can copy this, paste it 3 times, show, hide, and destroy. And then at the bottom of the scene we say return scene, and that's everything. And before we do anything more, I just want to make a copy of this file. So I just copy all of the contents, create a new file, paste it, and then we save this as empty.lua, so that this code can just be copied into all of the other scenes we're going to use in this game. So that will make things much easier for us. And then here is still no errors. So what we can do now is try to go from main.lua, which will be executed first, and then redirect us to the menu. And to do that, I need to go below here and say create composer, local composer equals require composer, and then we say composer dot recycle on scene change. So we remove caching and similar when we change scene. True. Composer dot go to scene, and to go to this folder and this scene we say scenes.menu, and then Corona or Solar2D will figure out this by its own. So if I save now, go back here, you can see down here that we got this information down here, scene create menu, and that's what we printed out to the console down here. Perfect. Okay, so now it's time to add some more information or pictures and similar to the menu. We can begin with the background image. So below here, just add 2 of these as a comment, or separate this a little bit. And to create the image we say local background, display new image rect, so it's rectangular, and we want to insert this in group main. And this is the path to the image, and we want it to fill the whole width and the whole height of the screen. And to place it on the screen horizontally, we say background.x equals _cx, which is a reference to this variable. And we also need to do the same in the y-axis, cy. So if we save now, and go back here, we will see that we have a new background for the menu. Perfect. Next we can add the title up here where we want to write ColorUp. So below here we can say local Lbl for label title, display.new text, and then the text we want to show. Now we want to set the X position, which is the middle of the screen, and the Y position, which is 100 pixels or points from the top of the screen. This is the font we want to use and the size of the font. And then we want to set the color, we want to use white, and to set the text color we say Lbl title.fill equals curly bracket 1, 1, 1, and this is values between 0 and 1. So this is what you do to get the white color. Next we want to insert this to the main group, grp main, insert Lbl title, and save. So if we go back here now again, you'll see the title up here. So then we can create a play button, and the code for that looks like this. So first we say local btn for button play, display new rounded rect, which will give us a square or rounded rectangle. We want to place it in grp main on the center of the screen and center of the screen in both axes. We want it to be 220 points wide, 80 points tall, and the radius of the rounded rect is 20. We set the fill to white, and we also set the alpha value to 0.4, so it has a little bit of transparency. And on top of this button we create a new label, just like we did with the title, and then we place it on top of this button. And at the bottom here is a btn add event listener tap, and we tap it, we want to call this function. We don't have that yet, so we can just comment out this for now. But if we save and go back here, you will see this button. Perfect, but nothing happens when you tap it. And we can also create 2 buttons down here, one for the settings and one for the leaderboard. And the code for the settings button looks like this. So we just have a label we can click on. But we don't have the go to settings function either yet, so we can comment out this. For now we will come back and reactivate it. But it's just the same text as on the button and the screen title. So if you save this now, you will see settings at the bottom here. So this is the height of the screen minus 40 points. So it's at the bottom but 40 points up. And then I want the button for the leaderboards as well. So I paste in the same code here. So this is just also a simple text at the bottom of the screen, or height of the screen minus 100 points. Set this to white, insert into the group main, and when we tap this we want to call this function, but we don't have this function either yet. As you can see, this is a little bit different from this, and that's because we're going to call a class here and not just a function. So what happens here is actually that if you say print leaderboards, we go into this function and we try to call this, but this has been commented out for now. But if I save now and go back here, click leaderboard, you will see down here that we actually click this and it goes into this function, but still nothing really happens. And as you can see now, we actually have a finished menu. Almost, we can't go to other scenes, but it wasn't too much code to get this looking as it does now. Before I make it possible to go to the game, I want to create a new class called Utilities. This will contain hamper functions for playing sounds and similar. So inside the root here, I want to create a new folder called classes, and inside that a new file called utilities.lua. And the only thing I need in here for now is the possibility to play sounds, but I still need to add a little bit of code. And I want to import GG data so we can store settings here for later, like if the sound is on, if it's off, and similar. So let's begin by importing GG data. Import local GG data equals require libs.gg data, which is one of the libraries we included in the beginning of this video. Next, I want to create the utilities class. So create class and set variables. Local utilities equals 2 curly brackets, which is a table in Lua. And then we want to initialize the database by saying local db equals gg data :new, and pass in db, which is the name of the database. You can't use another word here if you want to. And we also want to check that if the database hasn't been initialized yet, we do it init db. If not, db.sounds then. So if this variable doesn't exist, we want to create it db:set sounds, and I want it to be default to be on. db save end. So the first time we run the game now, it will check that if this doesn't exist, it will create it. And then below here, I want to create a new label or comment sounds, and this is where I want to have all the functions connected to the sounds. And I want one function for playing sounds that we pass in. Function utilities :play sound, and then we get the sound from where we call it. If db.sounds equals on, so here we check that if it's set to on or if it's not set to on. Audio.stop, so we stop everything on channel 2 because that's where I want to play the sounds and not the music. Audio.play sound, and channel I want to play it on is 2. Then I can close this if, and close this function. And then I just want to return utilities. So return utilities. So now this file can be included in the menu and other places. So we can use these functions. So if I now just go back to menu.lua, I can import the utilities here. Local utilities equals require classes.utilities. Great, so now we can use utilities here in the menu. And up here in the local function, I want to create the function for going to the game scene. To do that, I say local function go to game utilities :play sound, and here I want to pass in this sound, and when I added it up here I preloaded it in the game, so I don't have to reload it every time I play it. And when we have played that sound, we can say composer.goToScene, and here we pass in scenes.game, which we haven't created yet, but we're going to do that now. So as you can see up here, I got an error, and that's probably because classes.utilities doesn't exist. Okay, I had a typo in the name here, like that. Okay, so now this works, but if I click here, nothing happens, of course, because I haven't activated it. But if I go down here, remove this comment, save, and if I now click here, it will crash because scenes.game doesn't exist yet. So now we need to create that. And I can, before I copy the empty scene, I just want to copy this, paste it here, because I'm now going to use it on all of the different pages or scenes. So I can save this now, make a copy, paste it here, and save it as game.lua. You can also replace this title with game and save. So if I now go back here and click play, you would hear a clicking sound. At least I hear it. And I go to a new scene, and down here it says scene create game. So I went from the menu to the game because here you say go to scene, which will replace the current scene. Okay, so now we can continue building the game. So if I just go into the game.lua, first I want to add a few more groups. Local grp backgrounds, this will hold the background images. Local grp world, this will have the character and the ground and similar. And local _grp HUD, this will be the score and everything on the front of the screen. And then I just add a command called misc, because here is a few different things like local _playing equals false because we haven't clicked start yet. Local _score 0, this is to keep track of the score. Local block width, because I want 4 blocks on the screen, which should take up 25% of the screen. So local block width equals, and then get the width of the screen and just multiply it with 0.25. And I want the local words, which is a dictionary of words to be showing when we get increases the score, like awesome, nice, oops, wow, great. You can add more words if you want to, or change them just like you want. And then we need some variables for the HUD. Local _label score. We can show the score. Just set this to an empty string for now. Local Lbl tap to start, empty. So when we go to the game, it will say tap the screen to start. And I want one more comment for objects, like local hero, local b1, which is block number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. Local backgrounds, which is a dictionary to keep track of the backgrounds inside this layer. Local underscore block IDs equals 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's easy to keep track of the 4 blocks on the screen, and I want to make it possible to randomize the order of this. Local blocks. So this is a list of the blocks as well. And then I want to predefine the colors of the blocks. So colors. It's a little bit boring to set up all of these variables, but it just makes everything much easier for later. Local CLR red, color red. And to get the pretty red color, we need to create a new dictionary and divide 209 with 255, 42 with 255, and 95 with 255. This is a RGB value. We can copy this 4 times. Color green, color blue, and color yellow. And this should be 122, 184, and 79. And this is 77, 157, 191. You can play around with these if you want to. 201, 201, 85. And then I want 2 more variables for the sounds. Local underscore SND jump equals audio.load stream assets sounds jump.vev. So we preload that sound, and 1 more for crash or loose. And this is crash.vev. This is also downloadable. I can remove that comment like that. And then I want to define 2 global functions. These are not local but global functions. So in here I say local touch, create a dictionary like that. So this will be called every time we touch the screen. And I also want 1 local enter frame. So this will be called 1 time per frame, and the game is 60 frames per second. So in here we move the character and similar. So if I save now, go back to the game, nothing has changed because we have just defined a bunch of variables. But now it's time to start adding things to the scene. So if I just go below where we inserted this, like we did in the menu, say GRP backgrounds, we want to define the background group equals display.new group. And then I want to insert this group into the main, so it's the scene or layer that it's in the background. GRP main, insert GRP backgrounds. Then I can make a copy of this. Replace this one with GRP world. So this is 1 layer above the background. GRP world. And on top of this, we want to show the score. So that is inside GRP HUD. Sorry if this doesn't make really much sense now, but when we start adding things to these groups and using all of these variables, it will probably make much more sense. So we can begin by inserting the backgrounds. So first I just want to comment backgrounds, so I can separate this code a little bit and make it as tidy as possible. So then I say local back 1 because I can have it local here. Display new image rect, add it to this group, the path to the image, the width and the height, and the position on the screen. And then I set this alpha to 0.03 because I want it to blend with the black background. And then I insert it to the list of backgrounds, so it's easy to move them and access them from the enter frame code up here. And this hashtag backgrounds is a way of counting objects in a list. So this will at the beginning return 0, plus 1, which is 1, and that's where I want to insert this. So if I save now, go back, you'll see the background here, and it's a little bit transparent, so it's darker and not as easy to see. And I can do the same now with background number 2, which will be above here, which we are going to move down when we play the game. So then I go below here and say local back to, the same width, height, same picture, and the same x-axis, but this is on the center of the screen minus the whole height of the screen. So it's the bottom of that background number 2 is up here. And then I insert it at the next place in this list. And to make it possible to move these seamlessly without any space between them, we need 3 backgrounds the same size. And this will be placed above this as well, or over. So if you save now, go back, nothing seems different, but you'll make a difference when you start moving them. And then I want to show the score label here on top of the screen, but I want to hide it until we start playing it. So score label. So we just create a new text like we did in the menu. Set the default to 0 because we haven't got any points yet. It's on the middle of the screen and 150 points from the top. I set the fill to white and the alpha to 0 so you can't see it yet. And then I insert it to the HUD group. And then I want to insert the tap to start, which also should have some animation effects. Tap to start label. So it's very similar, it's just white, different text. But if I save now and go back here, you'll see tap to start, but nothing happens. And what I want to do now is to move it a little bit up and down. And to move it a little bit up and down, I'm going to use the transition library. Transition.2, and then reference this label. And it goes 2 seconds, and for those 2 seconds or 2000 milliseconds, I want to move it up and down 50 milliseconds. So if I save now, go back, you'll see that this goes very slowly up and down. Great. So now we have started building on the game and it looks better. So it starts to look like a game now. Now I want to add the 4 blocks on the bottom of the screen where the player is supposed to move on. Create a new comment, blocks. And first we add block number 1, B1. It's a rectangular square, essentially. Add it to the main group and set the block width, which we got up here somewhere there. And then we set the X position, which is the half of the block. So we always reference the center of the object we insert. And we want it to be placed on the bottom of the screen. So we add the height and take -20. Then we set the width of the square and the height of the square. The color ID is 1, which is a reference to this one. So we have control over it. And we set the fill to color red and anchor Y to 0. So this anchor position is where we reference the Y position. So instead of saying 0.5, which should be the center of the object, we say 0, which is the top actually of the object. And then we append it to the list of blocks, just like we did with the backgrounds. So if I save now and go back to the game, you'll see here that it's 1/4 of the screen and it's red. Perfect. And then we can do the same with block 2, 3 and 4. So it's just a little bit different X position. The Y position is the same. Color ID 2 and it's green. And then you insert it. And then number 3 has a different X position, different color ID and different fill. And same with number 4. So if you save now and check one more time, you'll see that you have all the 4 blocks there now. Perfect. Next, below here, I want to insert our character or the hero. And the hero code looks like this. Create a new rectangular, insert it to group main, and it's 20 points from the left of the screen, and this will be above these blocks, and the size is 12.12 points. The color ID for the hero is 3. This is the speed it will move at, the direction it will start in, if it has crashed, if you can increase the score, and the fill is color blue, and if you want to show the emitter or not. And the emitter is what is coming out behind the hero when he moves. So if you just save this now and go back to here, you'll see this is the hero resting on top of this. Not actually resting, but we just statically placed it. Before I continue, I just want to say thanks to my Patreons. If you too want to support me, you will find a link to my Patreon in the description below. Great. And before we start the game, we want to randomize the order of these 4 blocks. And to do that, we need to call a function called Randomize Blocks. And this will be created now. So just copy that, scroll up till you find local functions. And here's a local function, Randomize Blocks, and end the function. And then I want to randomize the color ID of the hero by saying hero.colorID equals math.random 1, 4. So this will give me a random integer between 1 and 4. And when I have that, I want to change the color of the hero based on the color ID. So if hero.colorID equals 1, then we need to set it to green. Hero.fill equals CLR red, And the reason I set this to red is because of, yes, I know that this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4, like that. So if I just go back here and say else if, can copy this, and if it's 2, no space there, else if it's 2, it's supposed to be CLR green, and if it's 3, it's supposed to be blue. 3, then blue, and else then we just say hero.fill equals CLR yellow, and so now it will randomize the color of the hero. So if I save now, go in here, you'll see that it's green. If I refresh, it's yellow. Perfect. And then I want to randomize the blocks. And to do that, I just say blocks ID, block IDs equals shuffle block IDs. Save. Okay, sorry, need to create this shuffle function. I forgot to do that. So above this randomize function here, create a new function and call this local function shuffle, where we pass in a table, the block IDs in this case, and then we get the length of the table. Now we randomize it by looping through it and giving it a new ID, like you can see here. If I now save, try to run again, it doesn't crash, but this hasn't changed yet. So below here, we need to loop through the blocks and set the color based on the new color ID it's got. So here we loop through all of the blocks, and then we get the block as a local variable, and we set the local color ID based on the iterators number we have now, and then we set the color just like we did for the hero. So if you save now, click play, you will see that this is green, red, blue. I go back, you'll see that this is a different order now. Perfect. So now it's time to start making it possible for the hero to move. we need to activate the touch functionality. So if I just go back to the code and find local touch. So here I say function touch, pass in the event, this is the touch event, and then I want to check if the touch began or ended, but in our case I just want when the touch began. So if event.face equals began, then I know that the touch just began. And then I want to start the game, but I want to check if we are playing or what. So if underscore playing equals false, then I know I need to start the play. Playing equals true. And then I want to call the utilities play sound snd jump. So we play the jump sound when we start it. And then I want to remove the label tap to start. So we fade it out over 200 milliseconds. And I want to fade in the score. And here I also use the delay, so it waits for this to go away before it starts fading in. Now we just end that, and that, and end that, and save. But if you start to use it now, nothing will happen before we have added the event listener to the scene. So if you go to the bottom of the create function below here, we say runtime add event listener touch, and then we call touch function. So if you now go back here, tap to start, this goes out and this comes in, but nothing more happens before we do that. But at least now we know that the game is running, we hear a jumping sound and everything is ready. So now we need to make the hero or the character move. So if you go back here now and find enter frame, below here you can say function enter frame. I don't need any events here. Now we can say if playing, then if hero dot direction equals right, then I know that I want to move the hero to the right of the screen. Hero.x, which is the x position of the hero, equals hero.x plus hero.speed. Speed is one of the variables we assigned to it down here. There. You can increase or decrease this if you want to. And if it's not going to the right, then we know it's going to the left. And then we need to do the same, but we say minus hero speed instead. And so if you try to run the game now, you will see that the hero should start moving. No, sorry, we need to activate this as well, just like we did with the touch. So runtime add event listener enter frame and call enter frame. So now we can try to do this again. Great. So now we need to check if it reaches the other side of the screen and similar, and that can be done here. So if the hero.x position is greater than the width of the screen minus the half width of the hero, then we know that it has crashed with the right side of the screen. And when that's done, we need to change the direction by saying hero.direction equals left and hero.can increase score equals true, because you can only increase score one time per direction. And also when you reach the screen, you say randomize blocks. So we change the color of the blocks and also the hero. Sorry, actually I forgot to do one thing, because when we reach the screen we say if not hero.can increase score, then we go into this else game over. You need to comment out this now because we don't have that function yet. So this will be true if we have not clicked on the correct one and we hit the right screen without clicking the correct color, we will die. And then we need to do the same with the other direction. So if we have hit the left side of the screen, so if the hero.x position is lower than 0 plus the hero width, then we call this change direction and similar. So this can just be commented out for now. So if I go there now, nothing happens. And nothing happens now because we need to implement the can increase score. But we can create the game over functionality first. So if I just copy the name of this, go down to the local functions, local function game over, and that reminds me that these two functions here should be below the local functions, like that. Sorry about that. And that's because Lua reads codes from the top and down, and to make it possible to call the game over function, we need to be below the local functions. So then I can go back here into the game over function. And the first thing I want to do when we crash is to remove the touch event listener and enter frame event listener. And when that's done, we can play the utilities, play sound, SND loose. So we play the loose or crash sound. And then I want to say playing equals false. So the game now knows that we are not playing. And I create a comment function, utilities, set TMP score, pass in score, which I have not implemented yet, so I just commented it out. And also when we die, I want to show a little explosion of the character. And to do that, we're going to use something called a simple emitter. And to do that, we want 15 parts, so we make a simple loop. Now create a dot and append it to the GRP world at the same position as the hero. And then we change this or set the X position. This is a random position on the X-axis and one for the Y-axis. And we also want the same colors on the dots as the hero is. And we want to move the dot, set it to be transparent, and rotate it during 300 milliseconds. And we also want to hide the hero, and that's done below this, like that. So we scale it to be 0 size over 550 milliseconds, and when that's done, we create or go to a new function called game over. So local function go to game over, which is the new scene we're coming back to later. And so let's go back to the game and test this. If I hit here now, poof, and it has a little explosion. Perfect. But we also want a little emitter behind him when he's moving. And to do that, we can go back to the enter frame functionality. So at the bottom here, emitter. Okay, so below here, I want the code for the emitter. I only want to show 1 pixel or emit per 3 frames. So to do that, I need to keep track of the frames. And to do that, I say hero.show emitter num equals hero.show emitter num plus 1. Then I can check here. If hero.show emitter num is greater than or equal to 3, then I will go in here. And every time I go in here, I also want to reset this to 0. Like that. Oops, 0. And at the top here, I need to calculate a few things. I want a random size, random X position, random Y position, and then I create the dot and append it to the world. So this will come next to the hero, a little bit above the center, and then the size, which is a random size. But if you're going in the left direction, you need to change the X position to the minus X position, so it's on the other side of the hero. And then I need to set the color for the emitter based on the hero color ID. So I just check what color ID the hero has, and then I set the fill color for the dot to the same color based on the hero. And when that's done, I can add a transition to the dot, 300 milliseconds, where it's going to go in the X and Y position. I want to make it transparent when it's done, and I want to rotate it, and I want to scale it a little bit smaller. And when it's complete, I call a function and pass in the object, which is the dot. So when it's done, it will be removed from the scene. So we can test this now. So if you see at the back of the hero, you will see a little emitter. Perfect. Next, I want to make it possible to touch the screen when the hero is on the right color. So if I had clicked now, I want the platforms to move up and give me points. So if I go back to the code and find the touch code, it's here. So what I want to do here now, when I touch now, I start the game. But if the game is already running, I want to use this code. And here I just want to set hero.crashed equals false. So I reset it every time I touch the screen. And then I call a function called check collision. I will come back to that very soon. Then I pass in block number 1, check the color ID and the hero color ID. And if these two are colliding and they don't have the same color, hero.crash will be set to true. And then I know that you clicked when you was on the wrong color. And after that, I check that if hero.crashed is set to false, then I know you was on the correct color and we can increase the level. If not, we call the game over function. But before we test this, we need to create the check collision function. So let me just scroll up here. And then I paste this code here. So this is local function, check collision, where I pass in the block. And then we check the left corner of the hero and the box or the block and similar, and this will return true if it's colliding or if it's connected. If you don't want to write all of this, I will add a link in the description so you can find this function yourself and just copy and paste it. Perfect. So then we can create the increase level function, which is a bit longer than this. Local function increase level. And so first here I want to check that if hero can increase the score and we are playing, then I want to execute this code, and I can only increase one time per direction. So if you have increased your score, you can't increase it again before you have changed direction. So when that's done, I need to say hero.can increase score is set to false, and utilities play sound. Then I want to play the underscore SND jump sound, and I want to increase the score equals score plus 1, and I want to update the text on the label score. So Lbl score.text equals score. And then I want to add a little transition to the label score, so it's scaled up and then down again, so it just had a little animation so it's easier to see when you increase the score. Next I want to show the word on the screen, one of those from this list, awesome, nice, wow and great, just to have it a little bit more interactive. So then I need to find a random one of that. So local rand equals math.random 1 and the length of the words, which is 4. And then I create the label. So it's just like all the other, and then I select this, the word from the words based on the random value I get from this, and is placed on the center of the screen. And then I set the color to white and insert it into the HUD so it's on top of everything else. Next I want to run a transition on it, so I move it up and make it transparent and remove it south when it's finished. And when we have moved up on the screen a little bit, we also need to move all of the blocks. So we can't just keep going up, because then we go above the screen after a while. So if we are above this, then we want to move all of the blocks up 20 pixels and also the hero. Else. And if we are below this, I just want to move the background. And. So what happens here is that we check that if the background position is greater than the height of the screen, then we want to move it 2 times up, just so we get the infinite loop of the backgrounds. So if you go and test this in the simulator now, everything should work perfectly. You can test this, refresh, tap to start. Okay, that did not work because I forgot to save the file, sorry. So try again. Now the blocks went up, but I forgot to click when I was on the blue. So let's try again. Like that, perfect. Oh no. Okay, so I can't call the global here. That's on line 240. Because this was supposed to be capital R. I can test again that it's working. Yes, great. So now we can go and find the game over function. So inside go to game over, I want to go to the scene game over, which we'll create next. Composer dot go to scene games dot game over, and I also want to uncomment this because I want to save this temporarily. So we can save that. We will now be sent to the scene game over when we die, but since we haven't created it, it will just crash. But I want to add some more functionalities to the utilities file for keeping track of the score before we create the game over scene. So if I just go into utilities.lua, and just like we created this for the sounds, I want to initialize a value for the high score, set this to 0, and I also want one for the TMP score. This can also be 0. And then I need to create another function below here, just like for the sounds. Score, function utilities, get high score, so we have a function for getting the high score from the database. Return db.highscore, and I want a function for setting the high score. Function utilities set high score. If db.tmp score, which is the one we set when we die here, if this is greater than db.highscore, then we know it's a new high score. So then we can call db set high score to that value, db.tmp score. And we also need to save this by saying db save, and we can return true. So when we use this function, we will know if it was a high score or not, because here we will say return false and an end. And I also want a function for getting the TMP score. Add it below here. Get TMP score. And here I want to return db.tmp score. And I want a function for setting the TMP score. So function utilities set TMP score. Here I need this value. db set TMP score, and then I want to use the value which we're going to pass in. db, save, and end. Perfect. So everything here is now ready. So next we can create the game over scene. So if I just go into empty.lua, copy everything here, create a new file, and save it as game over.lua. And I can replace this title with game over. And here is a few more things I want to add, because here I also want to include the transition library, which we included in the beginning of this video. So local transition 2 equals require transition 2, which just reference this file here. And I want to include utilities. No, already done that there. Perfect. But I can include two more files. Local adds equals require classes.helper adds. We haven't created this yet, so I can just uncomment it. Just want to do it so it's done. And the same with GC for game center, helper game center. We'll create this later. Next, I want to create two more groups here. I want one for the GRP Confetti, because we want the little confetti explosion if we get new high score, and local GRP content for the high score, score label, and similar. And then below here in the local function, I want to create two functions there. Local function, go to menu, and if I click that, I want to play sound, click, and composer.go to scene, scenes.menu, and I can copy this because I want one for the go to game, so we can retry, go to game, like that. And then we need to start adding some content here. First we can add the background image. So it's just like we did in the menu. And then when that's done, I want to add some more groups. So grp content equals display, dot new group. And I want to insert this to grp main. Copy this and do the same for grp confetti, like that. Actually, this should change position because I want the confetti to be in the background of the text. And then we can add the title, like that. It's just game over title in the middle of the screen, 100 points from the top. And I want to show the score and the high score, so I want to check here if it is a high score, and we do that by saying local is high score equals utilities set high score, and then we pass in utilities get TMP score. So here we both set the high score, but we also get a new value, boolean, false or true, if it is a high score or not. And then I create a new label for the score. So it's just score. And then I combine it with the score I get from this here. So it's a score. And I combine this as one string. It's on the middle of the screen. And the same in y-axis, minus 30 points. And then I assign the font and the size. Set it to white and add it to the group content. And then below below the score, I want to show the high score, just so we know what the high score for the game is. So we can actually test this now by going back to the game, play. Okay, not a nil value. Okay, this was supposed to be capital S. Probably there too, just so it's easier to separate TMP and score. Okay, so I think that's it. Can try to save and do it again. 1 point. Okay, there I died. So games. Okay, typo. This is supposed to be scenes.gameover. So I need to go into game.lua again. Scenes. Save. Go back to the game. 1 point, and then I died. Okay, there one more error. Okay, on line 80 in game over Lua is an error. So here, utilities set high score. This is supposed to be capital S. And I also need 2 more of these parentheses because it's a function. So save, try one more time. Okay, there I died. Sorry about all these typos. Capital S. Save. Can try again. There I died, and now it says game over. Score 0, high score 0. If I try one more time, 1 point, and then I die. Score 1, high score 1. Perfect. So now I can go back here again and start working on the confetti if it is a high score. And to do that, I say if is high score, and then we go into this code. And if it is a high score, I first want to show a simple title, which high score, and center of the screen, and similar. And then below here, I want this to go up and down in size a couple of times, just for a cool animation. So I add these here, and then below here, I want to add the confetti. So it's quite long code for this, but what I essentially do here is to loop through the code 200 times, and then I create a new leaf, which is a simple rounded rect on the center of the screen, 10 pixels, and it has a 2 pixels rounded rect. And I set the alpha to 0 so you can't see it, and I want it to be rotated on a random angle. And then I have the same 4 colors here as up in the game.lua, and I set it to the leaf by unpacking this table. And then I create a new transition on the leaf, and the length of the transition is random, the Y position is random, the X position is random, and I want it to be set to alpha 1, so it goes from transparent to visible. And I set a simple easing on it, so it first goes fast and then slower. And when it's done, when I have created it, I want to call transition to falling leaf. So it's when on the top, it will start falling down. And the speed is very slow and similar, so it goes down on a very cool animation. So if we save this now, we can go back and test it. Oops. Okay, 2 high score, so then I can die. And there was the confetti. And the slow falling down here at a random speed is this code. And when we're down here, I want to submit the score to Google Play Services. To do that, I say gc :submit score, and I pass in utilities get TMP score. I haven't implemented this yet, so I need to comment it out. Send score to game center. Next, I want to add a restart button and a menu button. These can go below here, like that. So it's a restart button, which is a simple rounded rect with the touch or tap event listener. So when I tap this, I want to call the function go to game, and we have a play button, play label. And then below here we have a menu button as well, which is just a text. And when we tap this, I want to call go to menu and save. So we can try to go to the game over again. Okay, why didn't that work? Okay, I was not supposed to put this code here, so I just cut it out, because these needs to be outside of the if high score, of course, because we want to show the buttons anyway, of course. So save, and go back to Corona. And now we have a restart button and a menu button. And if I click menu, I will be sent back to the menu. And the same with the restart. If I click it, the game will restart. Perfect. Next, I want to have a Leaderboards button as well down here. Leaderboards. Like that. So it's just a simple text like we have in the menu. I've uncommented this because we haven't implemented the game center yet. And the last thing I want to do here is to add this, which will be uncommented for now, because we want to check here that if we can show an ad, we want to call ads show interstitial, which is a full screen ad, which we will come back to later in this video. Next step now is to implement the Game Center helper class. It will not work in the simulator, but we can fix all the functionality for it anyway. So inside the classes, create a new file called helper gamecenter.lua. And first I need to import a few things. So local JSON equals require JSON. This is built into Solar2D. Local utilities equals require classes.utilities. And then I create a class. I want to check which environment we are in, if you are in the simulator or if you are on a real mobile phone. So local env equals system.getInfo environment, which will give us which environment we are on. And I want to create a class by saying local game center, 2 curly braces, game center.gpgs equals nil, and gpgs is the game center for Android. Next we need to initialize Google Play Games by saying game center.gpgs initialize or init listener and pass in an event. And here we just want to check that it's not an error and that we are logging in and everything is okay. Next we want to create a function for submitting the score. Submit score. Like that. So here we check if the environment is simulator or is not simulator, then we can execute this code. And I just want to say that we could use this code inside the game over. It's just more clean to have it in a separate file. And this could also be reused in other games as well. Next I want a function for opening the leaderboards. Boards. And it's just a similar. We check the environment, check that if we have GPGS is activated and everything is okay. Then we show the leaderboard, and the leaderboard ID we will get from the utilities very soon. And if it's not activated, we call the init. And then we create the initialize function, init, like that. So also check here if we are on simulator. And then we require plugin.gpgs version 2. And when that's done, we can log in the user and set up the event listener, which is this one. Listener, probably better to call it that. And when that's done, we can return this class so we can reuse it. Return game center and save. Last step now. Next step now is to go into config.lua. No, sorry, build.settings, because we need to implement or include the GPGS plugin. To do that, we scroll down and find the plugin list. So here, just paste this code, comment, so I know it's the play services. So plugin.gpgs.v2, set the publisher ID to com.coronalabs and which supported platforms we're going to use, because this will only work on Android and Android Kindle and not iOS. And then if we scroll up and find the Android list here, we need to add something called a Google Play Games app ID. This can be found in the Google Play console, and it looks like this. It's just a bunch of numbers. So now I can save this file and close it for now. Next step now is to initialize this in the main.lua. So right away when we start the game, we want to initialize Google Play Games. Play Games. And to do that, we say local game center equals require classes.helper game center, and we call game center init. Next, we want to import and uncomment the places we want to use it. So if I go back to menu.lua, on the top here we can import it by saying local game gc equals require classes.helper game center, and I think we included this earlier like that. So now it should be possible to click this button and open up the leaderboards, but it's not going to work on the menu now in the simulator. And we also use this on the game over. So I can uncomment this, and I can also uncomment the include like that. So there won't be much to test in the simulator, but you can just click around to see that it's working here. Yes, there's no errors, so it should be working now on your mobile phone. Next step now is to implement Admob, which is the ad network I want to use for showing ads in the game. This will also not work in the simulator. So if I go into build.settings, we need to do the same here for the ads. Admob, we need to include a plugin. Plugin.admob. Code for this is very simple. Here you just need to say publisher ID equals com.coronalabs and save. But we also need to tell Admob which interstitial ID to use. So I can do that up here. And this only needs to be set on the Android, not iOS, because this is going to go into the manifest file. And if you want to find this ID, you can find it in the Google Admob console. You just need to create a new interstitial ad there. And we also need to add one more permissions for Android, which is com.android.vending.check license. Save. Okay, still no errors here. So that was it for the configuration. And next we want to create a helper function for this. So create a new file, helper ads.lua. And here I want to import the utilities and the plugin. So local utilities equals require classes.utilities, and local admob equals require plugin.admob. Then we can create a class by saying local ads equals curly braces. And then I create 4 variables here to check if the interstitial is loaded, if it's showing the Admob ID and Admob interstitial ID. I also need the listener here. I want to check if it's initializing, and if it is, I want to load an interstitial with this ID from the plugin. And if it's loaded, or when it is loaded, I want to set this flag to true so that I know I can show an ad. And then I create the initialize function, which just takes some variables and call admob.init, set this to the listener, and we pass in the admob ID. And then I create a simple clear function just to refresh or remove caching and similar. And I want one function for checking if we have a loaded interstitial ad so we can show it. And I want one loader function for loading an interstitial. So when we have played an X number of games, we need to load the ad. And I also have a show interstitial function. And after that, I can just say return ads and save. And this class can also be reused in different games if you want to. But I need to add a few variables to the utilities file. So if I scroll up, and here I can say utilities.leaderboard, this is the one we are using here, and Admob ID, interstitial ID, and how many games you want to play before you show an ad. So when I played 5 rounds, we showed the ad. So now I need a way to keep track of how many games we have played. So if not db.num plays, then we create a new variable, db set num plays to 0, call db.save, and close that. And I also need a few functions for this. So if I just scroll below the score, num plays / show ads, so we can keep track of this. First I create the function for getting the number of plays we have done so far, and then I create a function for increasing the number of plays. So it just takes the number we have played already and increase it with 1 and save. And then I create a new function for resetting this, which we will do when we have shown a new ad. And we have a function for checking if we can show an ad. So then we take the number of plays we have so far and compare it with the value from up here, which is 5 for me. And if it is 5, we want to reset it and return true, so we know where we use this function if you can show an ad or not. And if it's not 5, we just increase it and return false. So then I can save this, go back to main.lua where I want to initialize this, just like we did with the Game Center. Ads, local ads equals require classes.helper ads, ads init, save and close. And then the last step is to go back to game over and uncomment this. So we have included it here. Scroll down and find these 3 lines and save. And I also saw that I need to remove this. So I submit the score when we die. And here we check if this is true. Then we know that we can show an interstitial ad. Great. So now everything should work. We can test it one more time. Yes, there are no crashing or anything. And here you see that we increase ads. Perfect. And then the last step for this game now is to work on the settings file. There I want to keep track of if you want to show sounds or play sounds or audio in the background. So if I go back here, scroll up here, below this I want to say if not db.music, then I can just copy this so I don't have to write it. Music and save. So it's default on both the sounds and music. And if I scroll down and find the sounds function, we have a play sound, but you also want a function for checking sound. Function, utilities, check sounds, return db.sounds, and I want a function for toggling the sound. So when I click the sound button, it can go on and off. It's not 2 other ones, it's just when you click this, we see if it's on. And if it is on, we set it to off, and vice versa, and then we call save. And then I need the same for music. So I can copy this, check music, return db.music. And I can copy this function for playing sound, but we also want this for play music. Replace it with music. Check if db.music is set to on. And if it is, we say audio.play music. I want this to loop in the background, so we say loops equals -1. So then it will be looping in eternity. And the channel I want to play this on is 1. And audio.set volume, I don't want this to be too loud, so I can set this to 0.06, no, to 0.6, and channel equals 1. And I can also copy the toggle sounds because I need one for toggle music. Toggle music, 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 and music, and save. Great. So now everything there should be okay. No errors. So we can copy the empty scene, create a new scene called settings.lua. Then I need to replace this title, settings. And here I need to do a few things. At the bottom here, I want to create two buttons, variables, buttons, local Lbl sounds button and local Lbl music button. And here I want a function for going back to the menu. So it's just local function go to menu, we play the sound click and also go back to the menu. And I want one function for toggling the sounds. It's very simple, we just call the utilities toggle sound and then we check or change the text based on this check sounds, which will return on or off. So save that for now. So then we can create the toggle music as well. This is a little bit different. So here we just first toggle the music and set the text. And if it is on, we want to load the loop, which you downloaded in the beginning, and then we play it. And if it's off, we want to stop the music as well. And then I can scroll down and start inserting a few things, because we want the background here as well, and the title. So it's just the same background as in the menu and the game over and similar, and the title saying settings. And then I add a title for the sounds. And I also used the variable Lbl sounds button, which we added in the top here, which is a button. And the text on it will be returned from check sounds. And it's white and we insert it to the group main. And when we tap this, we call the function toggle sounds. And we do the same for music, which is a title and a button. And we call utilities check music and we toggle the music. And I have a other title, which is the created by Code with Stein. I hope you have already followed me here on YouTube. And when you click it, you will be sent to my channel on YouTube. And I also have a simple credits, because I have not created this. It's Eric Matthias from soundimage.org. He creates some incredible free music you can use in games. And then last, I just want to add a close button so you can go back to the menu. So this close button is a simple rect, which is set to almost transparent so you can't see it. And on top here I added a line, which is a cross you can click on. Okay, so then we can save this file and go back to the menu, because I want to activate the Lbl Settings button. So when you click it, you will be sent, whoops, there is an error. Listener cannot be 0 because this function doesn't exist yet. Again, make a copy of this. Go to settings and I want to go to this scene, scenes.settings. So now I can click this. There is a new error. Scenes.settings is not found. Okay, where did I put that file? Inside the clauses, that's wrong. It should be in there. Move. Try one more time. And now I have the cross button up there. Sounds on, music on, created by Code with Stein, and the credit down there. So if I click here, it will change to off, and same with the music. Set volume, that's not correct. It's supposed to be volume. Great. Can try it again. Yes, now it's working. Perfect. And then the last step now is to activate the background music in main.lua. So when we start the game, we also start the music. And then we just say local utilities equals require classes.utilities. And we can say local music equals audio.load stream assets /sounds/loop1.mp3 Utilities, play music. Now we just pass in the one we loaded here. So we can save this, and now you should have a playing background music here as well. And that was it for this video. I hope you liked it and that you was able to follow along. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I would really appreciate it if you click like below and subscribe to my channel if you want more content like this. See you in the next video.